From 1995 to 2000, Terry Grove was the manager at the Animal Research Lab at Regions Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. During that time, she noticed there was an issue with a particular piece of large cleaning equipment, and so she voiced her concerns to the hospital and said that they needed to replace it ASAP because it was a disaster waiting to happen. But the hospital decided they didn't want to replace it, they wanted to fix it because they figured it was salvageable and it was more cost-effective this way. But after the repairs, Terry and her team reported having the same issue with this piece of machinery. And so again, the hospital decided to fix it instead of replace it. And again, after the repairs, Terry and her team said the issue persisted. For years, Terry complained to the hospital that no matter how many times you try to fix it, it's always going to have this core issue, which is why it needs to be replaced. But the hospital was unwilling to spend the additional money required to replace this piece of machinery. And so eventually, Terry and the rest of her crew just had to be extra cautious every time they used it. In 2004, a few years after Terry had left the hospital, a 31-year-old woman named Tracy Kraling got a job there as a veterinary technician in the same lab that Terry had worked in. She was in the lab finishing up for the day, and she needed to sterilize her equipment. And so she walked over to the still faulty piece of cleaning equipment called the autoclave. An autoclave is a device that looks kind of like an oven that uses superheated steam to sterilize equipment and other objects inside of it. The autoclave at Regions Hospital was a huge industrial version that staff would have to walk inside of to place their equipment and then walk out of before they started it. And the persisting issue with this autoclave was its door. It shut on its own. Once it shut, the suction that was created inside of it held the door shut. And so if you were unlucky enough to be stuck inside the autoclave, even if it was off, you couldn't open the door again. And so somebody outside the autoclave would be the only way for you to get out. The issue with this door was so bad that workers in the lab would prop the door open with a big piece of wood every time they went inside in order to guarantee it did not shut on them while they were inside. However, on this day, Tracy did not use a big piece of wood. The door shut behind her and then suction kicked in and she couldn't open it again. She was trapped. And then her worst nightmare came true when the machine turned on and the steam cycle slowly began to pick up. Unfortunately, none of her coworkers had seen her go into the autoclave, and so nobody knew she was stuck, and so nobody was there to open the door and let her out. And no matter how loud Tracy banged on that door and screamed and yelled, nobody would have heard her. This superheated steam began being pumped into this room all over Tracy. When her coworkers found her, she was still alive, but she died within 24 hours as a direct result of her steam burns. The hospital was ultimately fined $75,000 for their role in her death.